Before we get started on our art and our practice today, I want to share a book with you. This book is called Lines That Wiggle. We'll be discussing the element of art of line. I actually have on my Elements of Art shirt today. You'll see line is the first one on there. So while we talk about lines, it's always fun to share an art book, and this is one of my favorites. It's kind of silly. It's called Lines That Wiggle, and it's by Candace Whitman with illustrations by Steve Wilson. Lines that wiggle. Lines that wiggle, lines that bend. Wavy lines from end to end. Lines that tickle, lines that sprout. Bugs have lines that stick right out. Lines to trap, lines to hide, two lines running side by side. Lines that curve, lines that curl. Underwater, lines that swirl. Lines that crisscross, lines that mend. Lines with doggies at the end. Lines that scurry, lines in threes. Lines and leaves that grow on trees. Lines that twist, lines that sway. Lines that swish the flies away. Zigzag lines light up the sky. Rainbow lines way up high. Lines are everywhere you look. Find some lines not in this book. I like sharing this book with you because it's important as we talk about art to talk about the things that make up our art. And that's what we're talking about. What are the building blocks of art? That's what we mean when we say the elements of art. We started off talking about color because art is full of color. We talked about shapes. We use shapes to create our art. And we most definitely use lines to create our arts. Everything that we draw, we start off making a line, whether it's with our crayon or a marker or a pencil, we're starting with that line. And sometimes we color the lines close together to color something in. Other times we draw the lines far apart to draw a shape. There's all different types of lines we can make. And we are going to fill our art this week by practicing lines. We're going to make a piece of three-dimensional artwork that you're going to hopefully find a really cool place in your house to hang up. Let's move on to our lesson for today.
Hey, kindergarten art friends, it's Ms. Tess, and we're into week 3 already. Can you believe? It's the 3rd week of school. I can't. It's just flying by. Today, we're going to talk about our next element of art, about lines. We talked a little bit about lines when we talked about shapes last week, because we knew that if we made a line and we connected the line back to itself, that when it connects and it closes up around some space, that space makes a shape. And we talked about our 2 types of shapes. We talked about our geometric shapes. We talked about our organic or our natural shapes. Those are our kind of crazy shapes, funny shapes, the shapes that are inspired by nature. Our geometric shapes are our math shapes, the ones that we'll practice with Miss Emma or Miss Jess or our kindergarten teacher, where we talk about our triangles and squares and circles. Those geometric and math shapes are the one shapes that have rules about them. And as you get older in math, you'll learn about some of those rules, about how many sides it has to have and how many angles and how many squares. But today we're gonna go talk about lines. So the first thing you're gonna need your box of crayons today, and you're gonna need your line practice paper. This is the first thing we're gonna do together today. You're also gonna need your envelope of supplies that you should have picked up on Friday with your teacher. If you didn't grab it yet, it's waiting for you in the office. If you don't think you can make it to get it, please go ahead and send me a message so that I can make sure we can make some arrangements with you so you don't miss out on this week's assignment, because I sent home some special materials for this supply making project. Some of the materials I sent home your markers. We got your markers in, and you have markers to use, and we will need these for our project. We're going to talk about how we're going to keep our markers good and safe, and also keep our markers in good shape so we can continue to use them all quarter long. And then even after you're done with art, you can still make art on your own because your markers will still be in great shape. But first today, we're going to practice our lines. So I want you to pick 3 colors out of your crayon box. 3 colors, any 3 colors that you want. Or pick 3 colors out of our crayon box and get our line paper ready. And we're going to work on our line sheet together. All right, I have my line paper ready to go. I picked out my 3 colors. My 3 colors I'm going to use today, I picked the secondary colors. Secondary colors, for whatever reason, are some of my most favorite colors. I love green and purple. I like orange a lot too. So I picked out my secondary colors. I'm going to start with 1 color. So I think I'll go ahead and start with my green. We're going to practice tracing these lines, and then I'm going to go back over them and trace them a second time with my other color and a third time with my last color. Because the more that we practice something, the better we get at it. These describe different types of lines, right? It doesn't have to be a straight line. It can be any type of line. Some of the things I love to say, a line is a dot that went for a walk. I'll show you what I mean by that. Here's my dot, and my dot is gonna go for a walk. Boop-a-doo-doo-doo, right down the sidewalk. My dot has turned into a line by moving across my paper. So that was a straight line, nice and even straight, like the edge of my paper. Now we're going to make a wavy line. We're just going to curve it up and down. There's lots of different types of wavy lines you can make. You can also make a wavy line that looks like a wave. Maybe we'll practice that one at the bottom. You know, a dotted line is a type of line too, and it's just lots of dots next to each other. To make a dot really show up on your paper, sometimes you need to set it down and then draw around it a little bit. Just like that doesn't always show up. So set it down and then make a little curly mark with it almost. Move it around to make my dot fill in the whole line. All right, my next line type is spiral. It's a curve that curls in on itself, and then I just attach it to the top and I do it again. I can make individual spirals. These ones I attached to each other. It's okay if you're having a hard time with some of these lines. It's the first time you might have drawn them. But even if it's the 10th, 11th, 12th time, everything we learn how to do in art takes some time and takes lots of practice. I never learned how to make these things the first time. And the only reason I'm pretty good at them now is because I've had lots of practice, because Miss Tess is old. I'm crazy old. All right, we practiced our spirals. Let's move to our zigzags. Our zigzags just go up and down. They make little humps. Zoop, 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 zoop. They look like lightning bolts to me. That's what I think about when I see a zigzag. It's a nice, big, long lightning bolt. Boop, 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 boop. Up, down, up, down. We can make crisscross lines. They can go either way. They kind of look like a little T or a plus sign or an X or a multiplication sign. In this one, I made a pattern by alternating with the cross and the X. Back and forth. If I'm moving too fast for you, you can always hit pause on my videos and come back and press start again when you're ready for me to move along. So if I move too fast, please pause the video. Next, I can make a curly line. Kind of like curly hair. Just goes whoop, boo-doop, boo-doop. It goes up and comes back down, and it actually, remember, when a line closes in on itself, it makes a shape. So it's kind of have a long row with all these little circles, little kind of bubbles in the line. We can also make thick lines or thin lines. So a thin line would just be my crayon going once. To make a thick line, I might need to make one line and two line and then color in between it to really fill it in so it looks like a big thick line. Can we think of two other types of lines? You can go ahead and make those lines on your own if you have a good idea. One of the ones I already mentioned was making a wavy line in maybe a different way. This one, I go up to a point and come back down. This one I make to look like, kind of like ocean waves. Maybe my wavy line would look like that next to a little pirate ship boat. So that's another type of line that we could make. But there's all different types of lines. So what can you come up with? Sometimes our lines can be straight lines that go in lots of different directions. I like the way that pattern looks too. All right. The next part you're going to do on your own, and you're going to take your two other colors and you're going to trace over them again, like I said. That'll help give you more practice, and you'll get better and better at this as you go. If you feel like you need some more room, you can also practice your lines in between the rows, or you can also flip it on the back of this paper and you can practice on here as much as you want. You can fill the whole paper up with your lines. Let's move to our next paper. This is just more practice of the lines that we did in front, but what you're going to do is you're going to fill the box with the line that you practiced. When we repeat something, it turns it into a pattern. So we're going to repeat these lines and we're going to turn it into a pattern. I might switch my colors for this. I'm feeling a little blue today. So anytime we repeat a line, we make a pattern. This will be a pattern of stripes. We can also make patterns out of colors. If I was to make a color pattern, I could go red, yellow, red, yellow, red, yellow. I'm repeating it, and repetition makes a pattern. If you wanted to, you could probably do a different color for each one of our practices here. This one is the wavy line. So I'll fill my box with wavy lines, and I'm making a wavy pattern. We're practicing these lines so much because you're going to use them in our assignment in just a little bit, and I'm really excited about it. So I think it's going to turn out super awesome, and I can't wait to see where you decide to hang up your artwork when you're finished. A dotted pattern. You see how I'm making like the little circles as my dots. I don't want my dots to be so tiny small that I can't see them on the paper. So I want a little bit of it bigger for a polka dot pattern. I wonder if you would look down at your clothes and see a pattern. Maybe you're wearing stripes or polka dots today. Next, let's make a spiral pattern. Remember, this is a spiral. So you can just fill your whole box in with lots of different spirals. They don't have to connect like the line of spirals we practiced on the other side. And I'm even making little half spirals to totally fill my box in with a spiral pattern. Remember, if I'm getting ahead, pause the video and catch up, and then press play when you want me to move forward again. Okay, zigzag. Remember the zigzag? The zigzag looked like my lightning bolts. You know, one thing you can do with your patterns don't just have to go this way to this way. Your patterns can go up and down too. This looks even more like a lightning bolt when I turn my paper back around, right? Looks like big lightning bolts shooting down. A crisscross pattern. Now with this crisscross pattern, I could make, it would look like a plaid pattern. You can make a full box of crisscross patterns by making lines that go in one direction and then turning my paper and making lines that go in the other direction. This is a crisscrossed pattern. And it filled my paper. Okay, we're at the bottom of my paper. Next I have a curly line. Loop, be loop, be loop, be loop. It's kind of like a roller coaster. Loop, boo loop, boo loop, boo loop. And I'm filling my box with curly lines, making a curly pattern. All right, the next one is my thick lines. So here's my trick for making a thick line pattern. First, I'm going to make my box look like my straight line pattern. I'm just going to do straight lines all the way across. Now I'm going to color in every other one, because those two lines, once I color them in, that's a big thick line now. So every other one I'm going to color in, and it's turning the skinny lines, once I color between them, have become thick lines. So now I have a thick line pattern. That reminds me of a candy cane. Last one is thin lines. So I'll do my thin lines, but I'm going to change direction. So thin lines are just the teeny top of my crayon points. I might even press as gently as I can. I still want it to show up, but if I press thick, I might press the tip of my crayon down and make my lines thicker. But you can definitely see thin line versus thick line, there's a big difference. I want to be able to see a nice difference in yours when you finish. Okay, that's our line practice. Remember, I didn't do this part where I did the second and third time. That's your job to do on your own, so don't forget to finish that part.
All right, kindergarten friends, that's the end of our practice for today. Just remember to go back and retrace your lines 2 more times with different colors so that you can finish your practice. And once you're done with that, you're done with art for today. Tomorrow, we're going to take all those supplies that I sent home on Friday, and we're going to put them together to make a windsock. And we are going to do lines in 2 different ways, in a 2-dimensional and a 3-dimensional way, in order to create our windsock. I'm really excited about it. We're going to learn how to tie a knot, and we're going to have a lot of fun together putting this all together. So tomorrow, remember the supplies that you'll need. It's a big list. It was at the beginning of this video, so go back and revisit in case you don't remember, but it's pretty much everything that was in the packet that went home with you on Friday, plus your glue. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.